History has seen a multitude of different weapons, each more powerful than the last. Immensely produced and ever-evolving, they change the conflicts of every nation. Some are so powerful, just mentioning them can be a deterrent on its own. Nuclear power is marvelous. It has the ability to supply entire cities with clean energy, or eradicate them of the map. I think Michael Stevens put it best. Science doesn't tell us how to use keys. It finds them or predicts them. How we use keys is up to us. In secured reactors, nuclear material like uranium or plutonium are used to create tremendous energy by letting protons collide with each other. Fission puts out an incredible amount of energy in form of radiation and heat. The core needs to be regulated for it not to melt in these extreme conditions. Water is as excellent of a coolant and radiation blocker as it is crucial to the main function of the reactor. As the reactor does its thing, the water surrounding the core will heat up to roughly 600 degrees Fahrenheit, or 320 degrees Celsius. The emerging steam is then pumped into pipes and ultimately pushing the turbines of generators and creating electricity. With time, the steam will condense back into water and re-enter the zero-emission circle that keeps the lights on for several 100,000 people. But unchecked, the power of the atom is overwhelming. Nuclear fuel, like the previously mentioned uranium, can be compressed with explosives to cause fission, which then releases X-rays and high temperatures to ignite fusion. In the blink of an eye, the atom is split apart and releases its entire force at once, achieving an explosion far greater than with conventional means. Nuclear weapons have been tested by several countries thousands of times, but only the United States dared to use them in war. Fat Man and Little Boy, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Utter destruction of two cities that led to Japan's surrender in 1945. The plane used to deliver those bombs was a B-29 with the call sign Enola Gay. The long-range strategic bomber was no stranger to raining down obliteration. Its impressive bomb bay holds up to 12,000 pounds of ordnance, a milestone of its time. 4 massive Wright 18-cylinder engines, each providing 2,200 horsepower, take it to the sky. With a ceiling level just shy of 40,000 feet, it operated out of most opponents' reach. But in case of contact, the bomber was quite capable of defending itself. It isn't called the Superfortress for nothing, after all. The end of the war kicked off the nuclear age, and with it another competition. As expected, the new arms race sparked development of even more potent weapons of mass destruction. Ivy Mike, Castle Bravo, and the 50-megaton Tsar bomber soon dwarfed the bombs that were enough to bring a whole nation to its knees. American deserts became a theater of atomic testing for several years. But a deliberate detonation of an atomic warhead is not the only threat of the atom. Nuclear energy is by far one of the most clean and least prone to accidents out of all the sources on the table. It's just that. If a mishap or accident occurs, the following repercussions are unmeasurable. Incidents like 3 Mile Island, Fukushima, or the infamous Chernobyl disaster has clouded the minds of many with doubt and anxiety. On April 26, 1986, because of unusual circumstances within the core, bad judgment, and a major design flaw, reactor number 4 reached a critical condition. The energy levels skyrocketed and the emergency brakes were initiated, which pushes all control rods into the core in order to shut it down. But the tips of these rods were made out of graphite, and graphite accelerates nuclear particles. This fatal failure in the power plant initiated the irreversible doom of Chernobyl. The already built-up pressure within jammed the control rods halfway inserted. At that moment, think of the power plant as a bomb with an active fuse. An endless power surge only stopped by the unthinkable. The reactor exploded and spewed its radioactive materials outside. Approximately 350,000 people were forced to leave their homes. None of them ever able to return, as the exclusion zone will continue to be dangerously hazardous for the next 20,000 years. Investigations of the events that led to and followed the tragic accident jump-started improvement in safety and preventive regulations. While nuclear facilities were made to be more safe, nuclear weapons became more dangerous. The rapid improvements of air-to-air or surface-to-air missiles and other counter capabilities pose a huge risk to deliver a weapon such as a nuclear bomb only by plane. The introduction of intercontinental ballistic missiles allowed a way to deliver an atomic payload without the possibility of interception. Missile silos and submarines are the doomsday storages of complete annihilation, stored all over the world, launched at the press of a button and reaching its target in 30 minutes. In case of an attack, retaliation is assured. This second strike capability is a strong discouragement to launch an attack. Thankfully, till this day, despite there being roughly 16,000 warheads around the world, World War II was the only instance where this weapon was ever used in combat. Perhaps it is the first weapon that is too powerful to be used. Well, the aftermath is not exactly desirable, to say the least. Countless bodies of innocents buried under the radioactive corpses of grounded buildings, society crumbling to atomic ashes. It's the peak representation of our self-destructiveness, and perhaps our very own undoing. A weapon for a war, without any winners. The sheer yield of energy from such an occurrence is unlike anything else. A flash so bright it can turn the night to day. Temperatures exceeding the ones on the surface of the sun. A huge fireball that will engulf everything in its path and turn it to ashes. And a mushroom cloud of dust, vapor, and debris climbing skywards. The development of nuclear weapons has changed the world dramatically. Never before has humanity been closer to possible extinction. And yet, despite the destructive and terrifying power they possess, one might argue the stunning beauty of such an event. The fact that we were able to manipulate the very bottom layer of the fabric of the universe to induce such a vigorous reaction is fascinating, a morbidly marvel of our technological advance. The aftermath survivors in the vicinity would face is unthinkable. Entire city blocks evaporated to nothing but small debris and dust. Buildings in a few-mile radius are set aflame and collapse, while the lands further downwind are covered with deadly radiation. It might make the brightest day, but the night that follows will be the darkest.